outside of the AI space, what is going on in the Chinese tech space? What are other new development in the Chinese tech space that we should be aware of?
Um, so I want to talk a little bit about just there's some misconceptions about rare earth in general.
Okay.
People think rare earth is just like digging stuff out of the ground.
Yep.
So there's what people don't realize is China is actually a huge net importer of rare earths. But what it does is it exports rare earth magnets. It stopped basically stopped exporting the raw rare earths, and it's also stopping exporting refined rare earth, which hasn't been the case until recently. Now all its export going out are rare earth magnets. So China's basically saying to them, you give us your raw rare earths, and we're moving up the value chain, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is a pattern that China has executed across wide variety of critical minerals. And by doing this, it's moving up the material science supply chain, right? Where in the last, I would say 20 years, America has shifted away from hard sciences and manufacturing to just software and design. China has really spent a lot of R&D into this so that its biotech got really good, its chemistry got really good, and its mechanical engineering got really good. And we're seeing the results because it is now um, able to lead globally. Because I see rare earths as material science in certain part of material science, and in other areas, it's also catching up to globally. And the result of that is you're going to see huge improvements in Chinese military versus what you see in America, because a lot of the development in aerospace and industries like that require the most advanced material science. Um, in some cases like rare earths. In other cases, it's carbon fiber composite, and there's other kind of synthetic fibers that China is getting increasingly really good at. And the key point is that China has all this supply chain, so it's had this effect where um, the 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 downstream industries, because they have this supply chain really close to the downstream producers, you see these rapid iteration product development across many mechanical engineering or chemical engineering type of industries. And those are basically stuff like aerospace, rockets, and things like that. So areas that we used to think Chinese industry is behind in, we're gonna see them really leap ahead in the next 5 or 10 years, right? And recently I posted basically a picture of the drones that China was making 10 years ago versus what they're making now. 10 years ago, their drones, currently their most recent like large drone looks like basically a more stealthy and larger version of B2.
Mm-hmm.
10 years ago, their drones didn't have they're very limited in their range. They're very limited in their stealth, and they were very limited in the kind of weapons they could carry. And all of that is just due to the fact that once you have this material science supply chain domestically, and you got really good at the electrical part of things, you get really good at the mechanical part of things, and then you can iterate through the engineering cycle really quickly. And I don't think people outside of the China really realize that yet.
China's export control on rare earth, is that still on against U.S. defense industries? Is there? So I understand China extended licenses for U.S. car makers. They granted 6 month export license to those U.S. export. But what about Lockheed Martin? They still need Sumerian cobalt magnets for their F-35 and missiles, right?
Yeah, I think that part of things we will um all the articles we read show that they have not opened up export licenses for those things.
Hmm.
Maybe they're looking to trade that for certain reduction in U.S. Export controls of the semi equipment. But if I was China, I would just leave that as is and just try to make the equipment, develop the equipment myself, right? And because it would take many more years for America to develop like same level as rare earth magnets as China has right now, because um, you know there are once you get the rare earth magnets produced, there's still different degrees on the performance level. People would never say a 90 nanometer chip is as good as a 3 nanometer chip. Yet people think that rare earth magnets are all the same. But clearly, if you have a higher purity rare earth alloy and then convert it to like a really well done magnet, it's going to be significantly higher performing in terms of um, able to operate at a higher temperature range and operate under like higher vibration than something that was developed with lower purity level and designed to like a uh, less impactful magnets, for example. So in the future, you might get into a case where China still sells magnets, but it would only sell the lower end stuff globally.
So even if U.S. defense industry can somehow get like transshipment of the magnets that's designed for export to say car industry, it would not be the same grade magnets that we need for military applications, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, like it would be very obvious something like samarium, right? That
Hmm.
it's pretty much only for, based on what I read, it's only for military industry. There's just no reason for China to export it to like some automaker somewhere.
Makes sense.
And I think it's also very short-sighted if a company that actually needs rare earth magnets to get it and then give it to the defense contractors.
Yeah.
I do wonder like what's gonna happen to a company like Boeing, like they probably need rare earth magnets for their civilian products,
Yeah.
but they also have the huge military program, right? Like those are the kind of things we don't really know, like how tightly China is actually controlling the export licenses.
Mm, interesting. Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, United States have been aware of the rare earth dependency on China since 2009. There was like congressional report back in 2009 screaming that we need to develop domestic supply chain for rare earth because the over dependency on China is dangerous. But now it's what 2025, so it's more than a decade later. 16 years later, they still haven't done anything. So I don't expect U.S. will pick up this rare earth production and rare earth refining capability anytime soon. At least not within 10 years. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's very hard to see how that could happen, right? But um, I would say that what's more likely to happen is you end up with a situation where America does get some, magnet production that are of lower quality, let's just
Mm,
say, domestically. And China keeps the higher end stuff for itself, which you can use for like, I don't know, aerospace, hypersonic missiles or things like that.
right. Right. So that will have some serious implications for Pentagon's plans to contain China. Anything else you like to cover in terms of any uh, new development in Chinese tech thing?
Yeah, I think just generally AI robotics is going to be huge going forward. I think that we're already seeing the humanoid robots really making in the Chinese factories. We're seeing like application of different kind of small to large AI robots being used for different purposes. And part of the reason is just like the Chinese uh, blue collar workforce is declining every year,
Mhm.
so it needs greater automation. And in terms of AI, I think could be very interesting to see like when DeepSeek comes out with V4, which is a non-reasoning model, and R2, which is the reasoning model, because everyone expects R2 to be really great.
Yeah.
So we're kind of all waiting for it because the entire open source community actually likes open source model regardless of which country it comes from.
Well, I'm glad we have you to give us update because right now, just recently I saw a tweet from Scott Adams, the creator of Dilbert cartoon. He tweeted it's like, "Oh, the coming of robotics and automation will totally destroy China's advantage in manufacturing because they will lose their edge in cheap labor." I'm like, what do you think is going on? China leads the world in the robotic automation. China has more manufacturing robots than all the rest of the world combined. Where is this guy getting his information? And Scott Adams is not some ignoramus from like I don't know, like he's like part of the educated US elite, right? Yet this is kind of outdated view they hold about tech and about China. So yeah, so I'm glad that I have you to set the record straight. And we didn't even we're at a 1 hour mark, and we didn't even talk about stuff like Chinese EV development and stuff like that. But I hope to have you back to talk about that next time.
Yeah, I think that's also very interesting. But like this entire robotics thing, I only found out in the past few months, and I think very few people understand this.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you, TP again for coming to my show. If people want to, find you and where can they find you?
they can find me on X or Twitter as TP Huang, and they can also find me on Substacks as TP Huang.
Okay, I'll have those
I'm
links.
pretty cons-
I'll have those
yeah, I'm
links
pretty
in
consistent with my name everywhere. So
I'll have those links in the description below, and people can check it out. And please subscribe. TP is I consider one of the premier expert on Chinese tech, AI, and you name it. Thank you again, TP, for coming, and thanks to everyone for listening.
thanks, Carl.
Hello, my friends. I'm Carl Zha, and you're watching Silk and Steel podcast. Leave your comments below on what you think about this content and what would you like to see more on my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.